welcome to the Aussie section of Realcomm IBcon. We've taken over here, the Aussies, otherwise known as the state of the Australian smart building market. So my name's Bruce Dysart, and I'm the Principal Director of Melt Strategies. We're a smart building consultant, and we work in the property market across Australia, working with these guys. There's two gentlemen here. So right here on my right here, I have
Ramesh Narayanan from Mirvac, National Manager of Asset Technology.
Yep.
And Dave Palin, I'm the National ESG Manager for Mirvac's Integrated Investment Portfolio.
Yeah, well, great to see you here, guys. And usually it's a pretty good Aussie contingent. And as we go out around the booths and so forth, we quite often see a lot of Australian companies and other people working in other businesses that who are Australian. So we've traditionally had a pretty good presence here, and it's always sort of good to get out. And it's been a while since we've actually been out, let out of the country and into the States and so forth. So it's good to mix up there. So I think characteristically, Australians have been known for a lot of things, and doing things slightly, a little bit differently, a little bit sort of irreverent at times, which sometimes get people. But I guess we're sort of honest and straight up and so forth. So, what do you think? How do you think that Australians are characterised when you're out there?
Do you want me to go?
I'll go first from an ESG perspective, quite aggressive. A world leader, the world rating tools all kind of know that Mirvac, as one of the Australian AREITs, Australian Real Estate Investment Trusts, are aggressive in terms of sustainability, and we're pushing the boundaries. So in terms of ESG, I think we're one of the world leaders. And I think in technology, we've been in that kind of space as well.
Yeah, I think punching above our weight would be the way I'd say it. Companies like Atlassian coming out of Australia.
Yes, absolutely.
So we've got this innovative culture, give it a crack. I think we also cut through bullshit pretty quickly as well. I think that's part of our DNA, is to sort of make sure that we're sticking to the script and we're doing things that actually make sense and add value.
I think it's fair to say, Bruce, it's been a big differentiator for us in Australia. Both the technology piece and the ESG have both been big differentiators, and we've seen some good alignment in the way that we work with our investors and also our customers. So I think overall it's been good for Australia.
Yeah, I think we've got a pretty sort of innovative culture, which also goes back to our heritage and having to have survived, and I guess been challenged a bit by the British. We won't go there. That culture has really sort of come through. But as a result, there's been some pretty amazing innovative companies that have come out. So people like Switch Automation, we know, and Sign, Cognian, Equium. Out there, Bueno out there, Exogenics.
Well, I think.
Who else? Willow.
I think you should mention yourselves there, Bruce, and Meld.
Thank you.
Certainly Meld would be on that list. I think certainly Bueno, that we've worked with Bueno. You've got companies like VAE, which started as a mechanical contractor and then came into more the integration space. I think we've seen a lot of evolution over a period of time as well. So you've seen a number of those companies you mentioned, the startups. And I think a lot of it is around the knowledge those companies bring. Yeah. And I think also another thing is that being Australia, things are slightly different. So we've had to sort of adapt and had an opportunity to have a look at what we're seeing out here in places like Realcomm, to have a look at the different sort of vendors and products they've got firsthand, but then trying to translate that and goes, well, what would actually work in our environment? Is it compatible with our electrical system, or a communications frequency, for example, that might work here, but it's not permissible over there? So we've had to kind of adapt and so forth there. And I think I was explaining, we're having a bit of a discussion pre this conference about that, saying, we end up sort of having to filter things a bit to arrive at kind of, selectively what we see as some of the best in the industry. But, I think we've also been fortunate in terms of the position of the Australian Real Estate Investment Trust. So the large owners probably make up 60% of the market. So, and because it's seen as a differentiator, people have been willing to try things, willing to work with innovators like yourselves in the industry. So that's been positive for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. So back to the topic of smart building. So obviously, I mean, we've been in the space here for 9 years now, right? So we were probably I think we're pretty sure we're the first in the industry to specialise just in doing smart building, consultancy and so forth. So, and I remember in my time back in Lend-Lease days, trying to get people their head around, well, what does this mean? Is it intelligent building? Is it smart building? Is it a something? Don't know. So what do you think that the current market awareness is of smart buildings, and the people that you talk with and your clients and customers and so forth? Are they aware of what a smart building actually is?
Yeah, absolutely. They're getting more and more sophisticated. I think a few things have probably driven that. You think about cybersecurity and that topic in boards and things of that nature. Large corporates are now finding that really critical, and that's sort of just started to filter down to what does our buildings have in that space. And then data, like suddenly, you guys call it data, suddenly there's all these really sophisticated customers out there who are saying, what's all this information that are coming out of our buildings? How do we get a piece of it? And we don't, as you sort of touched on, Dave, like, Mirvac own, manage, we do the all end-to-end integrated model. And so, we've got this opportunity really to dictate what goes into the building so that we can manage it into perpetuity. So that gives us this, this ability to try and get in there and really understand what our customers need and make sure that we're there for that whole journey with them.
I think we're cutting through the hype a bit as well. And you've said it a number of times around technology, data is an enabler.
Yeah.
We're a property company.
Yep.
But it's an enabler to what we do. It's an enabler to all the functions, whether it be leasing or ESG. So that's why it's so important.
Yeah. And I think kind of the terminology there is a really good sort of thing that's sort of taken some time to get people's head around. So we've all consistently now can call it a smart building, for example.
Yeah.
And it's not just similar to the journey that you've been on for much longer time on the sustainability side of things. Well, when everyone first started on that, and they're saying, well, what is a smart building? Oh, sorry, what is a green building?
Yes.
Right? And, what does that really mean, and so forth. So that's all.
That's matured over time, absolutely. And I must admit, I've shamelessly stolen Ram's interpretation many times in terms of what's a smart building. It's something that can integrate technology at any time into the future to improve, whether it's ESG, whether it's amenity, whether it's return on investment, whatever it is, we can integrate it.
Yeah. So we've said Australians are a little bit different in their thinking and so forth from there. What are some of the different things about the Australian technology environment, or the way we organise buildings, or just generally we structure our assets and so forth, do you think that's unique about the Australian market compared to the US market, for example?
Can I maybe start just from a Mirvac perspective, and you would know this as well from Lend-Lease days. We're lucky, and there's a couple of us in the market who are developers, constructors, owners, operators. So that gives us a different view. We look at a long-term view. We're a keeper of assets.
Yes.
So that actually flavors the way that we look at the intelligent buildings as well, in that we're looking for long-term value, not a short-term return.
Yep.
So it's certainly helped us in terms of looking at them, and we have a slightly different view of them because of that. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the overall market, though, did you want to touch?
Yeah, look, I think like walking around to the different stores and talking to people here, one thing that really stands out is the way that things like mobile coverage is delivered in buildings. Like there is no concept of a neutral host DAS in Australia.
Yep.
It's led by three carriers who we point at, and so we call them the cartel, and they dictate the terms. We build and then hand over this equipment to them. And so we lose a lot of that control. And so things like that, what you're hearing happens here is sort of music to our ears, but it's something that we haven't been able to embrace yet. So I think they're things that we'll be taking back to talk to the carriers about. But that's one thing that really stands out. Every time you talk to these guys about 5G, it seems like a much easier problem to solve.
I would say similar on the actual BMCS, BOSS, whatever we want to call it. We've seen, I think, a reluctance in Australia to move to the master systems integrator model. I remember talking to you about this quite some time ago, and not getting the take-up in Australia, where I think now we are starting to see that come through.
Again, I think it's the terminology and the role is now defined more clearly because they understand what the outputs really are and what they actually do.
But I think the important thing here, Bruce, is, and I think you mentioned this years ago as well, the independence needs to be independent.
Yes.
So it's not a ventigrator, as we call them, in terms of, well, we're vertically integrated, we just use our products. We go out there and we find the best products for our clients. And I think that's, again, where we're a little bit behind in terms of Australia. It's a little bit different, but I think we are slowly catching up there.
Yeah. Another big sort of takeout for me is how there's a lot more owner-occupied stock here than there is in Australia, right? Really big difference. So therefore, a lot more emphasis on the converged network here, and having both IT and OT stuff on there as well, which is just like sort of blows our brain a bit, right? Sorry about that. But it does.
Totally.
And
I think that's a fair
we keep these separate, and air gap basically is the way it is in Australia. So you have a base building network, and then you have a occupant tenant network.
And this is how we've come to the energy piece as well. Base building and tenants are separate in Australia. Our customers are separate. They're on separate networks on the whole.
Yep.
And we look at the data in the same way.
Yeah. So look, we've only got 15 seconds left. So I mean, if we had beers here, we could just keep on talking like forever in true Aussie style. And you brought in a meat pie halfway, we'd all good. So look, just to wrap up on here, what would you see as any sort of one last sort of big key issue that you see in the industry that needs to be sort of solved moving forward in Australia?
I think from a tech perspective, it's the hype. It's trying to control that there's so much out there. There's so many different companies that are
noise.
The noise, exactly right.
How do you cut through the noise? Exactly. You need to come to things like this, right? Quite often you're going around things like and going, where's the leadership group here now to come through and be exposed to stuff as well? Noise. How do you cut through that?
Extracting the value from the data. We're getting a lot more data. We're getting better quality data. How do we extract more value? How do we start to normalize it, tag it, whatever?
Yeah. So, well, I think that sort of pretty much takes us to the end of our little soiree into everything that's going on in Australia. Not everything that's going on, but there's the highlights, and two learned colleagues here, Ramesh and David here, know a lot about the industry, and thanks for having us and being here to speak at Realcomm, and see you next year.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Realcomm.
Thanks.